Good afternoon and welcome to today's Global Unicorn session with upGrad. We have with us Arjun Mohan, who is the CEO at upGrad. Arjun started his career with Think and Learn Private Limited as a teacher and moved up the ranks into a leadership role. Prior to that, Arjun was responsible for sales and operations at Titan Industries, and he also did his stint with Tata Motors, Tata Realty, and Infrastructure Limited, and also at the Sir Dorabji Tata and Allied Trust. We also have with us Phalgun Kompalli, co-founder upGrad. Prior to upGrad, Phalgun was a principal at the Fartanan Group, an educational strategy consulting firm, where he was involved in advising large educational conglomerate and investments funds on their growth and investment strategy in education. And finally, we have with us the one of the industry's stalwart, Mr. Manoj Kohli. He is the chairman of CI's Future Business Group and the country head for SoftBank India. Without taking much time, I would request Mr. Kohli to take this session forward. And just for everyone's information, we will also be converting this session into a podcast series, and we will be promoting this session to all our members. Mr. Kohli, over to you, please.
Thank you, Ankur, and welcome Arjun and Phalgun. Today's session, we have done many sessions in the last 2 years, but today's session is very unique in a couple of ways. One that we are covering education, which in my view is most important for India, along with healthcare. Maybe sometimes I feel it's more important than even healthcare. So most important sector of the country. And secondly, we have a combo of a founder and a CEO, which we never had. So that's a very unique situation. So I really am so happy to welcome both of you. And I will try to make it as candid as possible. And I hope you will also make it candid, because the objective is that young entrepreneurs, much younger than you, who are sometimes they may not be 20, or they may be 18, they may be 22, who have aspirations, they should listen to you, understand ups and downs, understand how you beat the struggles, understand how failure taught you, understand how childhood dreams came true. And I think it'll be great if you can be as candid as possible. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you to both of you. Let me start with Phalgun first. Phalgun, tell us about your childhood. Did you imagine at that? What was your imagination? What was your aspiration at that time, which may have contributed to what you are today? In terms of family background, in terms of was there any successful entrepreneur in your family? How was that situation? Now I'm talking of childhood before you went to university, primarily in school.
Great. Sure. First of all, thanks a lot, Mr. Kohli. Again, nice to be on a discussion with you. And thanks for having me and Arjun here.
Mr. Kohli. Nobody calls me Mr. Kohli, so call me Manoj.
Yeah. So just going back, I think my childhood, I was born and brought up in Hyderabad, so spent the first 18 years of my life there.
I also lived on road number 3.
I lived just outside Usmania University in an area called DD Colony. Spent bulk of my childhood there, so I have great memories of playing cricket on the streets, like going to these IIT tuitions when I was slightly older and in my high school. But yeah, family background wise, I think my dad was a chartered accountant, is still a chartered accountant. I mean, he was an entrepreneur in the sense that he set up his own practice. So he didn't work for the Big Four or any other firm. So he was entrepreneurial that way. But that kind of entrepreneurship was very different from what we think and imagine entrepreneurship to be today. My mom was a teacher. I had one younger sister and we grew up together. And as a child, I think obviously you have multiple aspirations at various points of time as you grow up. I remember at one point I was obsessed about being a cricketer, like most children in this country, I guess. And I was like, "Mere ko to cricketer hi banna hai." Then eventually, I think, I don't know, either I got sensible or somebody knocked some sense into me. Then I said, I want to be an IAS officer because I think that's the best way to create impact. So that was my dream for quite a bit. I remember why, because one of my uncles was actually an IAS officer, and I went to his place, and I was like really inspired by the work he did and the entire atmosphere. So I was like, this is very interesting. I remember when just in high school when I started preparing for engineering, and even during engineering, I would say one of my aspirations was always to be a scientist. I wanted to do my PhD and I wanted to be a scientist because at that point I very strongly believed, and I still do, that I think one of the best things you can do with your time is to add knowledge to our existing stack of knowledge that we have, right? And that only comes through research. Only true researchers can add to the existing stack of knowledge. Everybody else is using the knowledge and technology we currently have to solve problems. But I think the ultimate pursuit could be to create new knowledge which can be used. So I was obsessed for a little bit with being a scientist, and I did some work around that. So in all of this, I never imagined I would be an entrepreneur. As you can see, the track record is it is completely tangential. So forget having any dreams of building $1 billion company or a unicorn or anything. I never had any aspirations of becoming an entrepreneur. So that's my childhood background, and I think it is totally accidental. I think
That means till school you had multiple aspirations, which is normal again for any young man or young girl. So how did the college, then you went to school, university, engineering university, what was that influence on you? What kind of student were you? What was your strengths or aspirations at that time? Or what were your passions at that?
So I was very fortunate to go to IIT Delhi. So I spent 4 years on an amazing campus. In terms of a student, I think I was a very average student, like most other people there. We didn't really take our subjects or classes or anything too seriously. We figured out how to pass our exams and do reasonably okay. But we didn't take it super seriously. But I think a couple of things that it really helped me with. I was, for the first 18 years of my life, as I said, in Hyderabad, protected at home. I left that to not only leave home for a campus, but also to a boisterous campus like Delhi and to a boisterous city like Delhi, where we used to have this joke that IIT Delhi में आधे लोग बिहारी होते हैं, आधे लोग पंजाबी होते हैं, और कोई नहीं होता है. So it was,
Hyderabadi also.
yeah, so there were like one exception like me who turned up from somewhere. So I think I made a very, very different group of friends. I was exposed to very different ways of, very different perspectives, very different aspirations. And that was a wonderful experience for me, just in terms of how it broadened my perspective in life. The second thing was, I think it also gave you the infrastructure and the peer group to explore and push and challenge yourself, both intellectually, but also just the infrastructure that we had in sports, we had in multiple other avenues, right? So a couple of things that I really enjoyed doing at IIT outside academics was debating. I was also the debating secretary president during my time there. So I really enjoyed doing that. Some really smart people with amazing ideas just debating it out day in and day out. So spent a lot of time doing that. And obviously the other thing was sports. I've always been a huge sports fan. I still continue to be. So I spend as much time on the field as I
And do you win the debates? Do you win the debates with your wife?
No, those I lose. But there are two people who I lose my debates with. One is Arjun and the second is my wife. So
Okay. Okay, great. So once you passed out, I think you were a changed man from the day you joined IIT Delhi. You were a different man, much more evolved, much more grown, much more exposed to the world, etc. So what happened immediately after university?
So immediately after university, I would not say I was very mature or very grown, to be honest. I think I was still the same, silly teenager. But I got my first job in Opera Solutions in Delhi. So I spent a couple of years there in Delhi as a business analyst, doing a lot of data analytics work. One thing I always keep saying, that while the job was good, the thing it taught me is that I am better at basic data crunching, storytelling, and analysis, and using Excel as compared to 99.9% of the people. And I think that's a life skill, and that I am really thankful for that job for getting me there. So that's the only one thing I think I took away from that job, which was really powerful. Then coincidentally, I moved to Parthenon, which was an education consulting firm. in Bombay. I was excited about moving to Bombay as a city. I moved from Hyderabad, then spent 6 years.
Was it Bombay or was it consulting or was it education?
It was, I was in consulting before, so I would not say it was consulting. So it was Bombay at that point, honestly. That was my first stint with education. So I think I was very excited to move to Bombay and explore a different city because, as I said, I spent 18 years in
But your
Hyderabad.
mother was a teacher, you said.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe there is some linkage there.
Yeah, could be there is some subconscious thing that I'm carrying from there. So Bombay was really exciting at that point. I came here, I really enjoyed. I remember coming in and like being shocked at that point because I used to stay in Noida because my office was in Noida in Delhi, and I was like the rent I pay for my Noida house. Literally, I got like 1/15 the size of the apartment in Bombay for 3 times the rent. And I was like, this room that I have in Bombay, this whole house used to be the space I have in my kitchen in Delhi, right? So while I loved Bombay, it had its initial struggles for the first 1 year. I had to get used to it, but I keep telling people that Bombay is like an A.R. Rahman song, right? It grows on you and then eventually you become addicted. So I think it was a wonderful experience. I've been here for 10 years. So started with Parthenon. That was my first professional stint with education. Worked with some amazing people. The big advantage with Parthenon was also that it was an international consulting firm. So I did literally in my 4 years, I spent an year in India. For the rest of the time, I spent a year in Africa. I spent a year in Brazil. I spent a lot of time in Middle East, Southeast Asia, and that was again very, very exciting for a 22, 23-year-old person traveling the world, meeting different kinds of people, understanding different cultures, seeing how education has evolved across all of these countries. So I think that was a wonderful experience. And there, again, coincidentally, I also had the privilege of working a lot with my current co-founder, Mayank. So both of us were working at Parthenon. And we did a lot of projects together. And that's where the idea and spark for upGrad came from. And then I think for the last 7 years, we've been at it here. So that's broadly, I would say, what my journey was after I did.
No, that is fantastic. So when Mayank and you decided to drop that job for an entrepreneurial venture, what was your uppermost thought at that time? In those discussions you had, if you go back, what did you feel like doing? Why did you feel like doing this entrepreneurial venture? Why education? What was the root cause?
I think the root cause was, as I said, I spent 4 years at Parthenon, and as part of that, I remember visiting more than 100 universities and colleges. I did a lot of work in higher education. So I visited these colleges to understand what is happening, how they can be improved, identifying if there were a right asset and all of that, right? And eventually, as a consultant, you do all of that and put it in a slide, right? So we used to have this classic slide. I remember making that slide on my first project where we said that higher education is based on 3 pillars, right? Access, affordability, and quality. People need to have access to education. Second, they need to be able to afford that access. And if they're able to afford it, then they should get high quality outcomes, learning outcomes and career outcomes. If any of these is broken, then the education system is broken. So that is the slide I created, right? The second slide I created was a little bit more analytical, where we were like, every country has GDP goals, GDP per capita goals, and GDP growth goals, right? We did an analysis which clearly showed us that the GDP per capita of a country is very strongly correlated to the gross enrollment ratio of that country. It makes sense because the more skilled your people are, the more productive they can be, and the more stronger your economy is. So we said if India has to reach its GDP goals, what is the kind of GER that we are looking at? And these same 2 slides I used for all 4 years at Parthenon, every project, every client, every meeting. And after a point, me and Mayan got bored and said that, look, if this is so obvious, why don't we do something about it in India? Because the same problem exists in India, right? Access is a problem, affordability is a problem, quality is a problem. Online can clearly solve for it. If we want to reach our GDP goals, our GER needs to go from 27, 28% to 50%, which is not happening with physical infrastructure because nobody is building physical infrastructure at that pace. And online, again, is going to be the only way. So it clearly looks like a massive opportunity to create impact, both financial impact and also like the value impact that you can create. So I think that was the overall thought process when we said this is a very interesting space to be doing something exciting.
Manoj, we are not able to hear you. I think there's a network problem.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now
Okay,
it's
good.
better.
I just put off the video for some time. There was some problem. Anyway, so that was great. So basically, those two slides led to the thought that why don't we get this right for India?
Yeah, and do it ourselves instead of telling other people to do it.
Yeah, do it ourselves, and both of us are young, both of us are exposed to so many opportunities. Let's do it. Okay, so what was behind the brand upgrade?
Behind the brand, I think when we started, we had very limited understanding of brand or anything we wanted to build. For us, we just said that to be able to create meaningful impact, we will need strong curriculum, great content, strong user experience in terms of the learning platform, in terms of support services we provide. And eventually the proof of the pudding is in that they get strong career outcomes, right? So that's the only thing we were obsessed about for the first 12 to 24 months. And that's how we built the company. And then once we did it, I think we saw that there is a reasonable amount of traction on those fronts where we built a strong learning experience. We got some good university partners and their faculty involved in the whole design, development, and delivery process. And all of those were falling into place. And then we thought of, okay, now how do we really scale this to a really large population? And that's where Arjun and his expertise come in of being able to build a brand. So Arjun, I think, is a better person to talk about how the brand has evolved since he has come in, because for us, it's always been a very strong focus on product and the learning experience and how you give outcomes to learners. And I think there is a certain word of mouth that got built because of it. And we have used various ways to amplify it since then. But I think for us, if you were to ask me one thing that upGrad stands for today as a brand, and we would want upGrad to stand for, is lifelong learning partners for working professionals, right? We want to be the lifelong learning partner for anybody from 18 years of age to 80 years of age, because we are absolutely convinced that people will have to continuously invest in learning. It's not always doing a 2-year master's or 3-year degree or 4-year degree. It can come in various forms and various configurations, and we will also evolve with it. But being the lifelong learning partner for somebody is what the brand upGrad stands for.
That is a fantastic mission, Phalgun, to have. And with this mission, let me move to Arjun. Arjun looks a bit neglected, which is, sorry, Arjun, that was not the point. Point was, there was a flow which I wanted to continue with Phalgun. So anyway, welcome Arjun once again. So at what time did you join Phalgun and ma'am?
Yeah, first of all, Manoj, thank you for this opportunity. I think it's the first time that I'm on a panel with Phalgun, so it's definitely interesting to hear him like this. Yeah, so my journey in education started in 2007, and I joined upGrad in 2020. The first stint was in Byju's, so I was one of the early employees of the company. Personally knew Byju Ravindran, so that's so have been with him as a teacher ever since it was a coaching center. Fundamentally, I came into education because of my passion for education. I have always enjoyed teaching, and I felt that, okay, this is something which I will excel at. So I went into it. Then somewhere in the lines, I started ending up selling and marketing these educational products. So I joined Mayank and Phalgun in 2020. After quite a long stint in Byju's, where I was handling initially the domestic business and then the international business. So the idea was because I was involved in online education for a really long time. One part I'm very clear is that any sustainable company or concept need to finally give outcomes to the student. Or you can keep selling to and acquiring newer customers with a promise. But if you don't show the outcome, then it's a problem. And in education, we teachers have this way of saying that finally it is 50-50. 50% teaching and 50% learning. So the student needs to put in their 50%. Now in online learning, it is 30% teaching and 70% learning, because there's nobody to guide, discipline you standing in the same room. So you need to you need to be more involved, and you need to have that self-motivation. What I observed in K-12, especially the sector which I was, active in, is that it is very hard for a student to do that 70% when they are doing it online. The self-motivated students anyway does well. The others comes into it because of an infatuation for a set of videos or a tab, and in no time they lose their interest. So what I saw was, in spite of creating a great product, in spite of ensuring that every help is provided, I was not really able to see an outcome driven there because of many other factors coming in. So then I started thinking, which is the sector where I can really give an outcome and build a sustainable a quality education, or an outcome driven company. And that is where higher education came into my mind. Very simply put, a student or a learner comes to us after they are screwed. As simple as that. they know that they need it. So the self-motivation part is to a large extent taken care. They know where they want to, or they at least have some idea, or at least they know that they don't want to do what they're doing now. And hence they want us to provide them with a pathway. Hence, to a large extent, it works that if we work with them well and provide what we are good at, the outcomes do come in. So that's where I met Mayank. I thought that the vision was very clear and it was aligned with what I also want to do. It was, as Phalgun said, it was a brilliantly done product, already in moving towards scale. So I thought that it's a fantastic time to join the company and be part of the second stage of their journey.
Okay. Now, so you had three challenges. One is the challenge of scale, domestic market, international market. Second is the challenge of quality, because you always aspired, as Phalgun said, high quality.
Yep.
And third is the challenge of ensuring high impact or high outcome in an online situation where you're right, supervision is low, discipline may be low compared to a physical situation. So how do you look at yourself or look at the business on these three aspects of scale, quality, impact?
So the way I see it,
you've been there for 2 years now?
2 years, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's say in 2 years, have you made good progress in these three areas?
I think so. Yes, you can. You know the growth already, so I don't need to tell you that. But yeah, I think we are making good progress, and I feel that these three are not three different challenges. Fundamentally, the way Ronnie puts it, it's all about delivering quality at scale. And if you do that consistently, the outcomes will automatically happen, because finally the metric is the same, right? Quality is measured based also on the outcomes which comes out of it. Now, delivering quality at scale is always a problem, right? Because fundamentally how education systems or education in India has evolved is, it's always been one size fits all. I will have a course, I will make a video, and then you all see that video. That's it, as simple as that. What we did is quite different. First of all, we tried to create a product, an online product, which replicates a lot of successful features of a university. So in our online MBA program, which is done through our portal, our system, through by our partners, what we ensure is that there are multiple aspects which will make a student successful at the end of the MBA. It's just not about videos. It's about personalized way of doing it. What are you lacking? That is where we give it. There are quite a bit of live sessions. We created systems which will allow you to collaborate with your peers and do a project. We have mentors and coaches on our platform which will guide you to tell you which way you need to go. So everything we do has been aligned to it. And secondly, what we also trying to do is that we have been observing very closely how our customer base have been evolving. So as we move through scale, we have seen that our customer base have also evolved. 2 years ago, for our data science course, we used to only get techies. Today, we get a lot of people from financial industry, from FMCG, who has got no background in coding. So what we also do is, as and when we observe this change, we create changes in our course to ensure that these people are also successful. So for the finance students or learners with finance background, now we have a boot camp. which is a 2 months extra added course to ensure that they come to speed when they start their data science course. So this is how we have been doing. But only thing, I mean, we strongly believe that the only constant thing is change. So ensure that you are listening to your customer and figure out what they want to make them successful and keep doing it.
Yeah, you're right. So another aspect, the fourth aspect in my mind, from my own interactions with many people in education, is relevance to the future, relevance to the current employability, relevance to all the advancements of technology, all the advancements of geopolitics, so many changes which are happening every day, literally. So how do you ensure relevance constantly? I think that's another area, because the bad news about the education system is that the syllabus and the syllabus doesn't get changed too often. The content doesn't get changed too often. Relevance actually maybe declines. So how do you beat that risk?
Yeah, I'll go first, and maybe Phalgun can also add to it. Manoj, when we started off, right, we told you about the obsession we have of delivering outcomes. Right now, if I tell you what is the outcome our learners are looking at, we have seen that largely there are three outcomes these people look at. Number one, transition. That is, they are in a sector, they want to move into another sector, and then they want to get the skills of that. Number two, professional confidence. They're working somewhere, they want to be seen as someone who knows their stuff. And number three, acceleration. They're stuck in their career in a particular place, they want to accelerate and move on. So this is typically the outcomes any student or any learner look from us, right? Now, if you look at it, these are all very closely connected to the corporate ecosystem, or the ecosystem we all belong in. So one part we always do is we constantly are close to the industry who eventually hires the learners we train, right? These hiring managers, these techies who eventually become the managers of the people we train for, constantly give us feedback on which direction the industry is moving in. If I give you a classic example, in last 2 years, the tech, what is hot in tech has moved from cloud to cyber security back to DevOps now. Okay, in between there was blockchain was also hot when cryptocurrency was going up. So we constantly keep getting this feedback and an understanding on which way the industry would go. And we try to implement, and because we are a platform and not a university yet, we have full control on syllabus. Obviously, for our PGP courses and MBA courses, the university decides the subject. But what we ensure is that we do much more over top of it, so that the student gets what they want, what they are looking from an industry perspective. So this allows us to create a curriculum which is up to date, which is futuristic, and which actually makes the student what the industry is looking for. And we have seen that this is the outcome they are looking at.
No, that is great, because frankly, if you are able to sustain this edge, because this will be your really long-term edge in the market.
Absolutely.
Of being always relevant, of being always on the cutting edge of what the employer wants from an employee, especially senior employee. That's and right. I think your mission about long-term partner, learning partner, is so important. And I think it's a mission which globally is so relevant. So coming back to Phalgun now, Arjun, if you don't mind. So Phalgun, last 2 years of pandemic, how do you describe it? How did you build the company, build the business? Do you think, I think growth was faster than you expected in these 2 years? How did you face the constraints of pandemic? How did you grow? How did the employee satisfaction, consumer satisfaction improve during this period? Because this was a period of test or a challenge to many companies.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Manoj. I think it was a massive test for all of us. First, from a business standpoint, in the early days of the pandemic, The biggest challenge was we had two forces. The first is that obviously people were stuck at home. So they had much more work. People were trying to balance personal life and professional life in the setting of their apartment. And there was a lot of uncertainty around companies, their jobs, people getting laid off, etc. So a lot of people were not very confident and comfortable with investing money and time beyond what they're already occupied with in online learning. So I think that was the first big challenge that we faced. But luckily, that was there for about 3 to 6 months. And post that, as the situation eased out a little bit, people started then in the long term seeing value for online learning. And I think that is something that has changed significantly for us. So I think the macro thing that has that COVID has really helped us with is that certain macro trends which we always believed in will happen over the next 5-10 years, COVID accelerated that and made those happen in 2 to 3 years. For example, acceptability of online learning with parents, acceptability of online learning with society, acceptability of online learning with universities. It's like work from home, right? Like 3 years back, if somebody told you I'm working from home, you assumed कि ये तो छुट्टी मार रहा है. But today you're like, maybe he is working, you'll give the benefit of doubt. So similarly with online learning, 3-4 years back, people were convinced that, look, this is not the same quality, this won't work. But now that people have been forced into it and they have seen the potential of it, now I think that trend has significantly accelerated, and all universities are now planning to do something online and will eventually do it online over the next 3 to 5 year period. So I think that's a massive advantage for us. From a business standpoint, I think we have not seen any hockey stick growth or spike because of COVID. We are not a free platform or a low priced platform. So people still have to make a very serious, conscious choice and investment. So the business is growing and I think it's strong, but we have not seen any sudden spikes because of COVID. But as I said, the long-term acceleration of the trend of acceptance of online has definitely helped us. Second, I think the equally big challenge was our employee engagement. Pre-COVID, 2 years back when Arjun joined us, I think our organizational size was about 1,200, 1,300 folks. And right now we have 4,000 people, right? So during the pandemic, we have onboarded, and you include churn and all of these in this, we have onboarded about 3,500 new folks into upGrad over the last 2 years, right? And some of them have not come to office ever. We are onboarding them virtually. And I think that's a big challenge to establish the same kind of connect and motivation that comes in when you walk into the office, meet people, understand the culture, and live and breathe and feel that. So that was a big challenge. And again, massive coordination and massive effort from all the teams internally at upGrad, across our admin team, our IT teams. Simple stuff like getting a laptop to somebody who's somewhere else so that they can start working, to our HR onboarding effort. I think there was a massive effort to make sure that that engagement is in place. I still think there is a lot of gap between actually employee onboarding and engagement online versus what we do here. But I think that's something that we've done reasonably well to ensure that this kind of high growth over the last 2 years could be sustained.
That's fantastic. So based on this, I'll say foundation which you have laid in the last couple of years, I'm sure you plan to scale up 10x, 20x in the next 5 years. Now, for that scale up, what are the foundations? What are the building blocks? For example, a strong partner ecosystem or university partner ecosystem, strong teaching community, strong content upgradation teams. What are the foundations? What are the building blocks you are working on at present? So that you can ensure a 10x or a 20x scale up, not only domestically, but also internationally.
Sure. I will start with a couple of things and then maybe Arjun can add. The first foundational block, I think, is always going to be what I mentioned earlier, which is our learning experience, right? How we think of creation of digital content and curriculum, how we think of delivery of that entire experience on our learning management system, and then what kind of support services we can provide students, academic, non-academic, and career support services to ensure strong outcomes, learning outcomes and career outcomes, right? This is not something that is done and then you can use it for the next 5 years. This is something where we improvise every single day in terms of the new technology that is available, the new expectations of learners, and tweak that to ensure that we maintain a cutting edge on that. So I think that is going to be our core differentiator always, and that's where a lot of our effort will go in to make sure that tomorrow, let's say 5 years down the line, today it's tough, but 5 years down the line, it's possible that AR and VR have a very strong role to play in online education, right? So if that happens, is upGrad prepared for that? So making sure that we do not miss any of these big macro trends to ensure the best online learning experience, I think is going to be the first major fundamental building block, which we continue to improvise on. The second one is, I think we have been now in existence for about 7 years. And if I think of the next decade, I think we as upGrad would like to stand for, as Arjun mentioned earlier, a brand that delivers quality at scale, right? So when we started upGrad, one of the things was that, look, in education, quality and scale are counter forces, right? If a university is taking more people, it generally means it's lower quality. If a university is taking only 1% of the people, it generally signifies quality, right? So that's something that we wanted, that narrative is something that we wanted to beat. Because otherwise then you're always creating exclusive clubs and a bulk of the people are not getting quality education. So what can you do to create a brand that stands for high quality at massive scale? And for us, the examples and the aspirations of that are Nike, right? Everybody buys running shoes. It's a scale brand, but it's a high quality brand. Apple, again, I know the penetration in India is low, but it's again a large scale brand and again signifies very strong quality. So what can we do to establish the credibility of upGrad as an educational brand that delivers high quality at massive scale? I think would be the aspiration and the fundamental building block.
So fantastic, because Apple is the right model or idol to have, because every month or maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you get a new software upgrade. And by the way, if you see the list attached to that software upgrade, what all upgrades you have, maybe the 20, 25 upgrades you get in one go. Whether you are using iPhone 7 or 8 or 10 or 12, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You have the same high quality software to support. And that is what I mean by content upgradation, content renewal, content relevance. I think there can't be a better example than Apple on this, I feel, in the world. And they do it so seamlessly across the world. Customers don't even realize it's happened, and it's happened. And they're using new features next day. So that's great. You would like to continue, Arjun, please, on this?
Yeah, I think Phalgun have made it clear on what we are doing. I just want to detail out what Phalgun mentioned. So the number one aspect which we always, which we invest in heavily, is how we do this learning experience, which is the tech platform. So upGrad is not just an education company; we are an edtech company because we do education through technology. Now, more than content, what we have seen is that it is just not the updated content the learners of the day want. They want newer features. So there was a time when asynchronous content was what learners wanted because they only understood that. Over a period of time, it became live. Over a period of time, it became bootcamp. More and more working professionals want to learn while doing. So keeping in pace with this changing expectation of the customer is only possible if we upgrade our tech stack. So that's one investment we continuously make. We have a very large tech team, updated technology. We try to do it as much as possible. But yes, I think it's a lot of scope there. Second, of course, is the learning experience ecosystem which we have built. It is just not about updating content. It is about understanding where what is most relevant to create that courses, create that partnerships, create that content finally, which will keep us very, very relevant. And finally, to tell the story and to ensure that we just not do it, but also create a brand like Apple so that people do understand from the name upGrad itself that what we stand for.
Now that's great, Arjun. So tell me about the brand. How do you think, I'm sure you do brand salience research. How do you think your brand is shaping up in the last few years, and what do you think will the brand standing for by 2025?
Yeah. So we always want to stand for those three things which Phalgun mentioned, the slide which he did, and that's what the company stands for: access, affordability, and quality at scale. This is what we want to do. We want us to be seen as an education company which is making that difference. Now, how we have been telling that story has evolved with our learners. So there was a time when, because of the fact that we collaborated with universities or partnered with university, we looked like a university brand. Okay, the geeks always liked us, but finally we were, I wouldn't use the word boring, but that is what it was, a boring, old dated university brand. What we realized is that working professional as a segment and learners as in general has evolved with time. Today, a course which you do while you are working is not something which only an academically inclined person do. It has become more of a norm. Everyone understands that I need to keep myself upgraded. So a data scientist today could be could be the day job of he may be doing a day job of data scientist, but he may be a stand-up comedian in the evenings. So we have seen that our customers have also evolved. Our customers have also started liking brands which has a softer touch to it, and that is how our messaging has also moved. We have tried to bring in elements which will excite this customer so that they will listen to us, and then at the end of it come to know that, hey, this is one place where I can go to upgrade my skills. So that's how we have evolved over a period of time. I think in India, at least, we have made progress, but still a long way to go. I would say that quarter after quarter, we have been improving our, top of mind recall, awareness levels, consideration levels. And as you rightly said, there is research which we do literally every quarter to understand where it is going. Largely, we have been able to establish ourselves as a brand which people think about when they are thinking about upskilling in a working professional level. But I think a lot more can be done. What we would love to see ourselves is when people will start considering upGrad as a place they will go and study moment they start thinking about higher education. Alongside the IITs, alongside the IIMs, they say that, okay, why do I need to take a break? I'll probably go and see the courses in upGrad, which I can do along with my job.
Aspiration to have. Arjun, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Manoj, you actually broke in the middle. I think the network was a problem. Now I can.
So that's a very good aspiration. So tell me, as you scale up in the country, how many markets do you serve outside India now?
So we have fairly large businesses in 3 key markets outside India. In the US, we have a team, and we do good amount of revenue there. We also have a team in EMEA and APAC. APAC is mostly concentrated in 3 countries, while EMEA is more of English-speaking countries and Middle East. So these are the markets we are focused on.
So as you execute big scale in each of these new markets in the next 5 years, how will your business model change? Because the business model started, let's say, 5 years back in a certain model so that the model is profitable. How do you think you're tweaking the model for the coming 5 years based on your experience?
Sure. So Manoj, very relevant question, and this is something which we debated. So when we started our international business, one part was very clear to us. The problem upGrad started off to solve in India is very true and relevant and existing in most of these markets which I spoke about. Even in a place like US, nobody can take for granted that they'll get a job at the end of it now. Upskilling is very much a requirement today. So we were convinced that there is a market for this. Now, as you rightly said, right, when you go into this market, there are cultural nuances, there are local truths which you need to understand and plan for. Otherwise, you will just end up failing. So what we did was each of these businesses are incorporated as separate business units with a leader. local employees who is trying to tweak our model to make it as close and successful with respect to that market. That's how we approached it. It's been an ongoing process. I think we have started seeing good returns on that decision. And probably in another 6 months' time, we should be able to be in a good position to have got a very localized business model for these markets.
Yeah, no, I think that is absolutely right. You need to customize and still keep viability and profitability supreme, because it is the productivity, and that is where many startups are not passing the test. So having a profitable business model at all times, changing the business model from market to market according to the local requirements of the consumer, very, very critical for sustainable business.
Absolutely.
Okay, the other thing I want to check with you is about corporate governance, because again, we are hearing a lot of views on corporate governance issues in some startups, and I'm sure there are very, very few startups like that. But how do you and the founders jointly maintain the highest standard of corporate governance so that your company has a long-term success rather than a short-term success?
Yeah, so Manoj, very relevant question in the current, as you rightly said, the startup ecosystem we exist in. So first of all, I would say the founders of this organization, Ronnie, Mayank, Phalgun, these are all people, and of course me, we are all people who have worked in multiple businesses outside, which has been around for probably decades, and hence have exposure on what is right and what is wrong in terms of corporate governance. So what we have tried to do from the beginning, the structures are very clear, the controls are very clear, and we have always tried to govern this company or try to run this company with a mindset that soon, or maybe a couple of years down the line, this company is going to list in New York Stock Exchange or a NASDAQ Stock Exchange. When you have that, right, then you will be forced to put the right controls and work things around it. That's how we have been doing it. And yeah, Phalgun, you can add to that.
Yeah, this is an important test for founders also, Phalgun, because
sorry, yeah, I
I'm
think
sure
I was
majority
struggling
of
to unmute myself. But yeah, no, I think Arjun put it very succinctly, right? I think for us, the benchmark has always been this for the last few years, that if we were a public company today, would we stand the scrutiny? And if we can't stand that scrutiny, then something has to be fixed immediately. So although we are private and we want to be a public company over the next 2 to 3 years, but I think over the last 2 to 3 years itself, we have prepared ourselves internally from a corporate governance standpoint to ensure that we will hold the scrutiny of a public company, to ensure everything is as per process and everything is defined pretty clearly.
Excellent. I can tell you from my experience that companies who maintain highest level of corporate governance, they always succeed in the long run. And they pass the tests of ups and downs, because ups and downs will come in life of every company. They pass the test easily because they have taken into account many aspects proactively rather than reactively. So Phalgun, coming back about the quality of the team and the quality of the culture you are building. Can you just tell me what kind of quality of team you're building? I call it LTC, leadership, talent, and culture, because companies who can do a high quality LTC, the leadership is high quality, the new talent, young talent is good, and of course the culture is open and flexible. How are you doing it in upGrad?
Sure. So I think I keep saying, somebody yesterday asked me, I think as an early stage founder in the first 1 year, what is the most important thing? And according to me, the most important thing at that stage is the first 5 employees you hire. In terms of ambition, in terms of direction, in terms of the culture you set, everything gets defined by that. So I think we have kind of lived by that, where we have, for almost all positions, we have a fairly strong and painful recruiting process, where we make sure that we are attracting the right kind of talent. But more than that, I think all of us as founders in the company and Arjun, we have different roles on an executional basis. But I think one of the things that's very important for us as a leadership team to do is one, set the vision for the company. And I think that's where a lot of the culture gets driven from. One is, what do we want to achieve and how fast do we want to achieve that? And I think as the leadership team, for me, those are the two key things: is one, setting the vision and setting the pace. And then obviously being able to communicate and articulate that to the rest of the team to motivate them and create an atmosphere where they're able to deliver their best. So from a leadership team standpoint, we constantly try to have a clear vision, have a clear expectation of the pace, and then communicate that effectively. And I think once that goes down, one of the things that we've always tried to do is maintain as non-bureaucratic and apolitical an organization as possible. And hand to heart, I can say that at upGrad, we've managed to do that fairly well as compared to some of the other startups, where anybody can speak to anybody, can speak their mind. Nobody has a cabin. Anybody can walk into anybody's room or anybody's desk and express their opinion and be constructive in that thought process. So I think we have always tried to keep that to ensure that the pace of the organization and the culture of communication is extremely transparent and vibrant.
That is fantastic, because the test I had when I was leading businesses was that three things I want to kill every day. One is hierarchy, second is bureaucracy, and third is politics. Because these three tend to come up every day. And if you don't kill them every day, you will indirectly nurture them.
Absolutely.
So it is better to eliminate them every day. And that's the only way to keep culture professional, open, flexible, especially because the millennial generation, which is young people who are 27, 28, they only want to work in such a culture.
Yeah.
Arjun, you said something?
No, I totally concur with you, and that's what we try to do. The aspect is that in today's world, right, you really don't know from which part of the organization will that brilliant idea come from. If you have hierarchy, if you have these structures in there, you're just stifling innovation. So we have always stood for it, and that's what we have been trying to build.
Yeah, I fully agree. I fully agree. And that's why somebody said, one of my very good friends, he said, salary is a bribe to keep you down from creative. So people who work for salary, that means they're really not showing their full creativity as they have in their intellect. So anyway, moving ahead, Phalgun, how do you maintain your personal fitness, personal balance, personal health, and fitness? How do you maintain it? And I want to ask both of you.
I mean, couple of things. I think, as I said, I'm a big sports fan. So I end up playing either squash or tennis 3 to 4 times a week. So one, it not only helps me from a physical fitness standpoint, but also from just like a mental unwinding standpoint. I think that's probably one of the few hours of the week where I am totally switched off because I'm so passionate and focused on the game. I try and run a little bit, but not that much these days. So I think those are the two things that really help me, one with my physical fitness and also just to unwind. The last thing is obviously, as I said, I keep telling this to people, but I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. So on my worst days, the only thing I want to do is I want to go home and watch Seinfeld for a few hours. And that really, like, I don't know what it does, but it resets my mood and I generally become positive after that.
Very good. Excellent. Arjun?
Yeah, so I don't do much of sports these days, but yeah, I go for a run. I try to do it every day in the morning. That's how I generally start my day. Wherever I'm traveling, I try to do it as much as possible on a treadmill, or if there is a place to run outside, I prefer that. So this is how I try to maintain it. So I like to read. So one way I try to keep my mental sanity is by reading. Typically it is, I mean, long flights. I am only able to tolerate the long flights because I read in the flights. So yeah, so whatever happens in a day, find a few hours to do these kind of things, and that's how you maintain your sanity.
Excellent, excellent. Because, you know, for people like you and Mayank, all 3-4 of you together to maintain balance, because the best decisions, best business decisions, people decisions, strategy decisions are taken when your mind is relaxed.
Absolutely.
If your mind is stressed, and I've seen that in my own life, if your mind is not relaxed, you take wrong decisions. So it is better that keep it calm, keep it balanced, so that you take right decisions. Once you take right decisions, business has to be successful. There's no choice,
Yeah.
you know, because you make good decisions.
That's right.
And personally, also from a family point of view, keeping a balance, keeping fitness and good health, you owe it to your family. And
That's
especially, I'm seeing some startups burning out people, etc., which is not a good news. I think yes, for a short period, people can work a lot, but not for over a long time, because they burn out and their families suffer. So
Yeah.
I hope you are sensitive to all this in upGrad.
No, absolutely. I think obviously we are very ambitious as a team and we want to achieve a lot and want to do that very fast. But I think all of us as leadership are very cognizant of the amount of effort people are putting in, and they need to switch off, take a break, and spend it with themselves, with their families and loved ones, to make sure that they get that little bit of opportunity to unwind. And as you said, it's very important to ensure not just their own wellness, but also for us overall productivity and outcome as individuals and as an organization.
And Phalgun, well said. And especially I can tell you, because from my time in Hyderabad, that people in Hyderabad know how to balance very well.
Arjun will agree with that.
You know, Hyderabad is a very balanced kind of a place. People work hard, they enjoy, they eat well, they're smiling. So I think that's the right kind of balance they try to keep, which that's why I love that city. So Phalgun, last question. What message do you want to leave for young entrepreneurs who have aspirations to build a very large-scale global business like yours?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. The first one would be that stay in it for the long term and stay the course, because I think that's the biggest variable in terms of people succeeding or failing in their entrepreneurial journey. I have seen a lot of my friends, extremely talented, great folks, who came in with this concept of, I will do this for 2 to 3 years. If it works, great. If not, then I'll go back to a job. I have nothing to lose, which is okay. And I think that's a good way to take a plunge. But I think the other perspective that I have is that if you can commit yourself to 30 years of being an entrepreneur and building something on your own, you might fail, you might struggle, you might see your lows, but in that 30-year horizon, there is no way that you will not end up creating significant value for yourself and for everybody else. So I think staying the course, persisting, and going the distance, I think, is one of the most underestimated things when it comes to successful entrepreneurs and building great scale businesses. Because whatever you do, any scale of business, there are always going to be struggles, there are always going to be existential moments. You just need to persist and, as I said, stay the course. That would be the first one. The second thing, sorry, I thought you were going to say something, but the second thing for me would be that, look, it's a wonderful time, and I think entrepreneurship is only going to become more important, is only going to become more celebrated in the country and globally. And it's a great opportunity for a young entrepreneur to take the plunge again and use the infrastructure, the resources, the overall tailwinds that we've been able to create as an ecosystem to build something meaningful over the next couple of decades. So I don't know if I'll...
Fantastic. Both sets of advice are very good. Arjun, you like to add something to what Phalgun concluded?
To the entrepreneurs who may be seeing this, all I want to say is, I think this is the golden era for Indian entrepreneurs. There have been no better time to start an organization, to try out your idea. Largely, it is, first of all, it's not just about the resources. You all will get the resources in today's world, but it's also the culture of this nation has changed. It is okay now to fail. So a few years you put in it, even if it doesn't work, I would say no problems, but you learn a lot, much faster than what you will if you don't experiment things. So that will be my 2 cents for the entrepreneurs.
Okay, great. No, I think very good advice. And I can say that life, whether it's a leadership, professional leadership, or an entrepreneur, is a marathon. And that's what that's what Phalgun, you said. It's not a sprint. So if you want to sprint for 6 months, 1 year, maybe 2 or 3 years, you will not succeed, because you need to have a marathon attitude which will take you to scaling up the business in a big way across the markets you want to serve. So that's fantastic. I would like to thank Phalgun, Arjun, both of you. I really want to wish you good luck, and please wish good luck to Mayank too. This has been a fantastic session. A lot of learning, a lot of ideas, a lot of good things you're doing, a lot of balance you're bringing to the future. And I'll be very happy as a friend to support you, help you to grow bigger. And I wish to see you in next 5-10 years growing to global scale and being a global brand. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Manoj.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
CI, for having us for this session and for, in general, building the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Thanks, everybody, once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to Ankur.
No, thank you, Mr. Kohli, and thank you, Phalgun and Arjun. It's completely a great session, and from CI, as we can say, look forward to having a deeper engagement of Phalgun yours and Arjun yours as well for us. And wish you all the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the
Thank
best.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.